In late February, the National Security Council held its first meeting since the outbreak of the coronavirus in Nigeria.
Well, back then, the security chiefs updated President Buhari on the fight against insurgency, banditry, and the general impact of COVID-19 on the nation's security. The president restated his administration's commitment to end the spate of violence and insecurity in the country.
The National Security Advisor, Agbamu, told State House correspondents after the meeting that the president is willing to do whatever is necessary to reduce crime in the country. Government also stressed the need for a collective action from security agencies and ministries, departments, and government agencies in tackling criminality across the country.
Well, since making this comment, some critics say it is not yet Uhuru in Nigeria concerning security. And joining us now from our Abuja studio to look at the violation of interstate travel, banditry, as well as security issues generally amid COVID-19 pandemic is Patrick Agbamu, a security expert and president, CEO, Security Watch Africa Initiatives. Thank you so much, Mr. Agbamu, for joining us this morning. I think a good place to start this conversation would be the development we saw in Lagos yesterday night, where essential workers were either arrested or restricted by security operatives. Although that was resolved eventually by the Inspector General of Police. But what could be responsible for such misdirection from the police top brass? Is it that the police, which is the lead agency in this situation, doesn't have a clue on how to effectively and efficiently enforce a lockdown or curfew in time of a crisis like this?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what happened in Lagos yesterday, very, very unfortunate. It must have been a result of breaking communication, proper communication, or disregard to what should be done. First and foremost, when we got information, I got information, went into the matter to find out what actually is the situation, to find out that, yes, some of those people were on essential duties, while some are not necessarily supposed to be where they were. For instance, if because I'm a medical doctor and I'm not on duty and I want to go and visit a friend, I'm not supposed to be on the road. So that I have an ID card as a medical doctor, but I'm not on duty, I'm not supposed to be on the road. These are the things that need to actually be defined properly. Even as a journalist, if you're not on duty, it's not every journalist that because you are a media personality, you have no reason to be on the road. But I just want to take the excuse and the privilege to go and visit a friend during the curfew. That, I think, is wrong. But it was good that the IG intervened quickly and resolved it. And I hope that it will not repeat itself. I hope that all parties involved in that situation will be able to understand their limits. The essential workers need to carry out their legitimate responsibility, and they must be supported to do that, even during the curfew. The security agencies also have the mandate to enforce no movement order. But there must be a nexus, there must be an agreement over this issue.
Definitely, I agree with some of the points that you've made. However, if you say that there are certain people, essential workers, who are taking advantage of this and not necessarily using that time to get to their places of work, how is the Nigerian police force able to detect who is actually in the line of duty and who isn't? Because in some sense, we are all essential workers. But I also want to add to that. I mean, this is a situation that we saw yesterday in Lagos. However, before that, we were still seeing people defying interstate travel and being able to make it through certain borders that were supposed to be heavily guarded. We're even seeing the Amajiri children being moved from state to state. So in a situation like this, how would you say that the police force is in fact taking out their duties?
Seriously speaking, with all due respect, I must say that the lead agency in internal security, which is the Nigerian police force, have really failed Nigerians in enforcing the interstate lockdown in sincerity. In a ratio of 1/10, I must say that they have scored, to me, just 3+3, because people are moving. Just this morning, somebody called me that he's in a lorry, and I asked him, how did you travel with this lockdown? He said he found his way, and he drove down and he's in a lorry. I said, that is actually very, very wrong. You are expected to be responsible yourself. Must we, for whatever reason, want to break the law for any reason? And the law enforcement agencies are supposed to be able to carry out that order. It's a presidential order, for God's sake, and I expect that everything necessary must be done, except like those exemptions, those on essential duties. Issues of carrying almajaris from state to state is also totally wrong, and it should be discouraged and be discontinued. The police have not done what they should do in this regard. I must say, it's not about internal check like in Lagos State, preventing people from moving from a place to place because of curfew. The interstate lockdown must be carried out. In some states, there are states that decided to create a barricade, gate, and once it's time, they lock it and they go with the key. Maybe that should be what should happen. But the problem is that if there's actually emergency, who opens the gate and all that? But I feel that Nigerians must be responsible enough to say, listen, no matter whatever situation, it's for our own health. It's only when we are alive that we can continue the travel, we can continue our businesses. So if we must carry out that interstate lockdown, it must be enforced properly. Then the law enforcement agencies, we have had a lot of some credible accusations that some of them collect money and allow people to go. Because the guy I talked about this morning, he said, look, he gave money in some place. I said, that is wrong. What you did is wrong, and what the police officers themselves did is totally wrong, and it shouldn't be. This is negating our collective will to be able to overcome this pandemic that is before us, and it must be discontinued. The government must do everything to ensure that it doesn't continue. People does not continue with the interstate movement. It's not helpful.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Patrick. Good to see you again. But real quickly, it looks as though that this lockdown or ban of interstate travel, it looks as though to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, it looks as though the VIPs are exempted from this. And I'll give you a very shocking instance. Somebody in the force once came to meet me and said to me that, okay, do you want to travel? And if I want to travel, that he can just, act as an escort with me and wear his uniform and I will pass and everything. And when you look at it, VIPs with their escorts still moved unabated. In fact, one of the index cases in one of the states spread as a result of moving out of the FCT when there was a lockdown to the states, and we know the story about COVID in that state now. So can I ask you, it might sound sarcastic, but does it cover the VIPs? Or are there special laws for them?
Yes, thank you for that question. But the direct answer to that is that a law is a respecter of nobody. It does not, except you're on essential duty like the Mr. President himself stipulated. There's nobody that should be exempted, unless on medical evacuation or whatever, and this must be properly defined. It's there, it's clear. It's an executive order the President signed and must be respected. Nobody should be exempted. It's because of the corruption within the system that allows people to move around. Like you rightly pointed out, the instance an officer, a law enforcement officer who is supposed to make sure that laws are not broken, is the one that is canvassing that you will provide security. That is totally wrong. And it was responsible on your side to say no. But there are many people who will grab the opportunity, for their own selfish interest, irresponsibility. It's wrong. Nobody, no VIP. For instance, I have had reasons to travel, but I refuse to. I refuse to go. And people say, look, you can move. I say, no, I don't have to. This thing will pass over and we'll continue with our normal life. Nigerians, sorry to use the words, most of us Nigerians are very, very responsible. When given opportunities, they want to break the law. So direct answer to your question is that nobody is exempted from my own understanding and from some of the people I've interacted. I spoke with the Inspector General of Police. He said nobody, he has not asked any of his officers to exempt anybody. So whoever is doing that is doing it for his own personal interest, and it's totally wrong.
Well, the police is making a case that it is unfair to blame them squarely for the violations we are seeing with restriction of movement. They say when you look at the fluidity of our state borders, how communities are straddled around each other, footpaths and all of that, they cannot totally man all those places. Do they make an important point in that aspect to say, you cannot blame us squarely because even your borders are fluid? Let me just add to that, because we also know that this pandemic has not stopped crime and criminality. We are seeing reports of banditry attacks, recurring attacks in Dapchi. We are seeing the development in even the president's home state of Katsina. What is your assessment? We've also seen the resilience of the Nigerian army, I must add. But what is your assessment of what we're seeing in these states?
Yes, from your first question, what you said is quite right. Because of the fluidity of our border, sometimes it doesn't help at all. I'll give you an instance. The divide between Delta State and Anambra State is the River Niger Bridge. Close to 60% of those who do business in Onitsha, which is in Anambra State, live in Asaba in Delta State. And so every morning and evening, they must transmit, they must move crisscross to be able to carry out their legitimate business. What do you do in that situation, that instances? Do you stop it? So that is a problem. The police will would they have to stop people from crossing over? We see similar situation also in Lagos State, where most of the people who work in Lagos State also live in Ogun State. And they have to go to their places of duties. So it's true for what you said. But when you look at other areas, there are some places that, for instance, having to travel all the way to Kwara State, you are not going there to work. You are not supposed to move. So that negates the law. But again, for what you just said, yes, there have been banditry attacks, and like you said, the unfortunate incidents in Dapchi and some other areas. Yes, it's sad that it's happening, but we must also, in the same breath, or even stronger breath, commend the Nigerian Security Service, the Nigerian Army, and other security services, particularly the Nigerian Air Force themselves, that rose up and faced the situation squarely. And we must say that this situation, it's a general, just as we are fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, the war against insurgency, banditry, and terrorism is still ongoing, and our soldiers are carrying out their responsibility. You also know that the Chief of Army Staff himself have relocated for more than 3 months now to the Northeast to help to ginger the activities there, and it's yielding results. It's unfortunate what happened in Dapchi and the banditry in Katsina and Sokoto State and some other areas you mentioned. But like I've said in some other interviews, I've said, look, Nigerians, we must provide credible information, because the information I got about some of these attacks, we expected some of these communities that these bandits or these insurgents crossed over to carry out the attacks to be able to provide timely information, but they did not. Some of these areas, the terrain are very, very difficult, because I know in some instances where vehicles cannot move. So these bandits have to go, they went there by motorbikes. How many motorbikes do our soldiers have to be able to go into those places to do this attack? And the asymmetric warfare that they carry out, they come attack communities, do what they want to do, and take off in a split of seconds or minutes, and they go. But I believe that intensification must be carried on.
And that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much, Patrick Agbamu, for coming on the show this morning.